Hey guys, Mr. Hark here. So, the title probably already messed with your head a bit. You're wondering, is this actually real? Why would anyone lock Bigfoot up? What did that elder see? And how far would someone go to hide the truth? You're going to get those answers, but only if you stay. This story is emotional, it's dark, and some parts are honestly hard to forget. Before we jump in, hit like, subscribe, and share this with anyone who's scared of Bigfoot or thinks it's all just a joke. The first thing I should say is this. I'm not here to convince anyone that Bigfoot is real. I know that sounds strange, especially with a title like this. But I'm not here to argue with skeptics or sell some big documentary ideas. I'm here because I saw something I wasn't meant to see, and then I let it stay hidden by keeping quiet. People love chasing monsters. It's easier than looking at what people do. I used to chase them too. Now when I hear Bigfoot, I don't picture shadows in the trees. I see a concrete room underground, the stink of wet fur and rust, and a pair of eyes that looked more tired than angry. And I think about my uncle. It was just the worst trip of my life, and the guilt of knowing that at 25, I walked into something I couldn't fix and then walked away. This happened about 7 years ago now. I was 25, like I said, New York kid. I grew up in the city, then made stupid money early, tech, startups, that whole thing. I'm not going to pretend I'm some genius. I hit the right thing at the right time, cashed out, and suddenly I was young and rich and bored. The one thing that never felt boring to me was this obsession I had since I was a kid: Bigfoot, Sasquatch, call it whatever you want. I was that kid with the taped VHS recordings of Monster Quest, printing blurry photos off the internet. My friends grew out of it. I didn't. I just upgraded the obsession. Better cameras, better lenses, night vision, trail cams, forums, maps. I'd fly out and do these research weekends with guys who lived in their trucks and told stories around campfires. It made me feel like I was doing something bigger than sitting in boardrooms, like I was going to be the one who finally put this thing on the map. That was the fantasy anyway. My Uncle Matthew was the only person in my family who didn't roll his eyes at that stuff. He lived in Washington State, up in timber country. He's native, from the area, my late dad's older half-brother. To the rest of the family, he was this quiet, slightly mysterious figure who lived alone on some land way out there. We'd see him at funerals and weddings, and he'd always have these steady, careful eyes and a handshake that felt like it belonged to someone who worked with his hands, not a keyboard. I hadn't seen him in person in years, but we'd message sometimes. He'd send me photos of elk in his yard, fog rolling through the trees, stuff like that. I'd send him my latest evidence. He never made fun of me. He never hyped me up either. He just listened. Then one day he wrote, "If you're serious about this, come when the rains start, not summer. The woods are different then." That was it. No details. Just that. If you say something like that to a guy like me who's been dreaming of the Pacific Northwest since he was a kid, that's like dangling raw meat. So I went. I flew into Seattle, rented an SUV, and drove north and then west until the highway got smaller, and the towns got less shiny, and the trees got taller and closer to the road. After a while, the GPS started to lose its mind, and I was just following directions he'd texted me. Take the gravel road when you see the blue mailbox with the bullet hole, stuff like that. It was late afternoon when I reached the first gate, a heavy metal thing across the road with a timber company sign, the kind that makes you feel like you're not supposed to be there. He'd told me where the key was hidden. Old coffee can wired to the back of a post. I've lived here a long time and I don't expect strangers' energy. Once I passed that gate, it felt different. The gravel was rougher. The trees leaned in, like they were competing for whatever light was left. I kept thinking, okay, this is it. This is the first step of the big adventure. By the time I reached the second gate, the light was low and my shoulders hurt from how tight I was gripping the wheel. There was that constant Pacific Northwest drizzle, just enough to streak the windshield and turn the dirt to a greasy film. His cabin wasn't one of those postcard log cabins you see on Instagram. It was practical. Wood siding, metal roof, a big front porch with boots lined up. A stack of firewood taller than me, tarped and tied down. A generator shed off to one side. A water tank. It looked like somebody had built it to work, not to impress. His dog saw me first. Then the door opened, and there was Matthew. He'd gone more gray since I'd last seen him. He wore an old flannel shirt and work pants. There was a moment where we both just stared, like we were trying to line up the version of each other we had in our heads with the people standing there. And for a second, everything felt simple. Family. He clapped my shoulder and said, "You finally made it." Inside, the cabin was what you'd expect. Wood stove, old couch, a table crowded with practical things, duct tape, a flashlight, a coffee mug, a small pile of mail, a few family photos on the wall, including one of my dad as a younger man. No TV, a radio in the corner. He'd made stew. We ate. We talked about the flight, the drive, the usual small things. He didn't bring up Bigfoot at first. I did. "So," I said, trying to sound casual, "you really think this is a good area?" He chewed slowly, then wiped his mouth and nodded once. "There's things in these woods," he said. "Things you don't see from the road." It wasn't the words. It was the way he said it, just flat. That's when he started in with the rules. He didn't do a big speech. "Don't cross the old cut line," he said, pointing vaguely toward the back of the property. "Stay on this side of it. You'll see it." "Okay," I said. "Why? It's not my land back there," he said. "And it's easy to get turned around. People think they're walking straight and they're not." He let that sit for a second and then added, "After dusk, you don't go out on foot. Not even to wander. You stay in the yard or you stay inside." "Bears?" I asked. "Lots of things," he said. "And if you hear knocks," he went on, "you don't follow them. You don't answer back. You stay inside and you let it pass." That one stuck. I laughed a little. I couldn't help it. "You mean wood knocks?" He looked at me then. His eyes were tired in a way I hadn't noticed before. "I mean what I said," he told me. "Don't follow them. You got to understand the headspace I was in." I'd spent years with guys telling stories on podcasts, online, at meetups, rules about wood knocks, about how to behave, how to invite. So hearing my uncle, this grounded, no-nonsense man, saying basically the reverse, it messed with me. It made it feel more real and less like a club. At the same time, there was this other voice in my head, the one that said, "He's keeping you on a leash. He thinks you're a kid. You're the guy with the gear. You're the one who flew out here to do what he never did." That voice gets people hurt. I noticed other things that first night, little details that didn't quite line up with the image of a simple, quiet elder life. The generator, for one. It wasn't just a backup, it was big, and it ran later than made sense. There were industrial chains coiled neatly in a corner of the shed, not the kind you'd use just for pulling out a stuck truck, way more than you'd need for regular repairs. I only saw them because he sent me to grab some firewood and I poked around like a nosy idiot. The dog, her name was Willow, was friendly with me, but there was this one patch of the yard she wouldn't go near. It was along the edge of the trees, not far from where an old overgrown track disappeared into the woods. I tried to call her over there without thinking, and she planted her feet and whined. Matthew snapped at me from the porch. "Leave her be," not angry, just sharp, sharper than he'd been all night. And there was a structure about 30 yards from the cabin that he diverted me away from without making it obvious. It looked like a shed, but it was different from the others. No windows. The door had 3 locks on it, 2 deadbolts and a heavy hasp with a padlock. The ground around it was bare, like nothing grew too close. I asked what it was, trying to sound casual. "Old pump house," he said. "Nothing you need in there." I bought that for about half an hour. The first night, I slept in the small spare room upstairs, low ceiling. The kind of bed that isn't comfortable, but the blankets smell like laundry soap and wood smoke and something safe. I remember lying there listening to the stove ticking as it cooled, the generator hum coming and going, and the dogs shifting on the porch outside. At some point, I heard a knock, not a creak, not the house settling. It sounded like someone took a piece of wood and hit a tree once, clean and solid, somewhere beyond the cabin. It carried through the walls more than it should have. Then, a few seconds later, another one. I froze. My first thought was not, "This is paranormal." It was, "He's messing with me. He's actually out there knocking to freak me out or test me." I slid out of bed and went to the window. The yard was mostly dark. There was a dim light near the woodshed. I could see the porch and the dog. Willow was standing, ears up, staring toward the tree line. Another knock. This one felt closer again, like a triangle around us. My phone said it was just after midnight. I heard Matthew's footsteps on the stairs before I saw him. Slow, careful steps, like he was trying not to make noise. He didn't come into my room. I crept to the top of the staircase and listened. He went out onto the porch. I heard the door open, then that cold, wet air rushed up the stairwell. Willow gave a little high whine that didn't sound like she was happy he was there, more like she was anxious. No one spoke. There were no more knocks. After a minute or two, the generator cut off. The silence that followed felt heavy, like the house was holding its breath. I stayed where I was until I heard the door close and his steps coming back up. When he passed the stairwell, he saw me. We just looked at each other. "Go back to bed," he said quietly. "It's done." The next morning, he acted normal. Made coffee, asked how I slept, didn't mention the knocks, and I was too proud to bring them up first in a way that made me sound scared. So I leaned into the other part of me, the investigator. "You know you can't just tell me to stay inside," I said at breakfast. "I came here to see something." He took a slow sip of coffee and watched me over the rim of the mug. "You saw something," he said. "You heard it." "That's not what I mean, and you know it," I said. "I've heard knocks on YouTube. I'm not going to fly back home and tell people, 'Yeah, I heard 2 knocks. That's nothing. That might as well be a branch.'" He put his mug down. "This isn't a game, John," he said. "I know it's not a game," I said. "That's why I came here. I'm not one of these guys who just talk about it. I can help. I've got money, gear, time. We could document this the right way. You said there's things out here. Let me see them." He looked tired then, older. "You think a camera changes what happens in the woods?" he asked. "You think it protects you?" I shrugged. "It's better than just waiting inside." He stared past me out the window. The light that morning was that flat gray where you can't tell if it's going to rain more or break open. "You follow your own rules in your city," he said finally. "Here in this place you follow mine. That's the deal. You're my guest." It should have ended there. I should have taken the hint. But ego is loud. That day we stuck to the safe side of the property, according to him. We walked some trails. He showed me old tree breaks, a spot where something had dug into the side of a hill. All of it could have been normal animal activity. He never said, "Look, this is Bigfoot." He just pointed and asked, "What do you think did that?" which was somehow worse. We heard a whoop once, off in the distance. Could have been my brain stuffing meaning into any sound it could grab. Willow's ears went up, though. That detail sticks with me. He avoided the old cut line. You could see it from a distance. Just what it sounds like. A straight corridor through the trees, overgrown now, with stumps and brush, had cut across the land like a scar. "Not my land," he said again. "Not your concern." That night, the generator ran late again. The knocks didn't come back, but something thumped once, somewhere outside, hard enough that the window rattled. I lay there in the dark with my heart pounding and my mind racing through maps. If the cut line runs there, and the shed is there, and he always stands there when he smokes, I know how it sounds. Like I was building a conspiracy theory based on nothing. That's basically what I was doing. The third morning is when everything went sideways. It was still barely light when I woke up, the kind of dawn where the woods are more shape than detail. I checked my phone. A little after 6. I don't know if I decided the night before that I was going to break his rules, or if it was one of those split-second choices you make half asleep. I just remember this thought landing hard. If you want this, you have to go now, before he tells you no again. I dressed quietly. Thermal shirt, jacket, jeans, boots. Grabbed my main camera, a flashlight, and a small backpack with a water bottle and a first aid kit. I know, the irony. Willow wasn't on the porch when I stepped out. She was nowhere in sight. The yard felt smaller than it had the day before, the tree line closer. I could hear a creak somewhere, the steady rush muffled by the trees. I didn't think, I'm breaking the rules. I thought, I'm just going to take a quick look past the cut line. I'll be back before he even wakes up. The path to the cut line was obvious once you knew where to look. An old track, rutted in places, slick with mud. I walked fast, partly from excitement, partly to keep my body warm. My boots made that sucking sound every time I pulled them out of a deep patch. As I got closer, the forest changed. The trees were a little farther apart, but there was more brush, higher ferns, salal grabbing at my legs. There were fallen logs going in all directions. I remember the smell as I stepped onto the cut line itself. Not strong, just there. The cut line ran straight, like someone had drawn a line with a ruler through the forest. In both directions it went on farther than I could see in that light. I picked one way, left, because it dipped slightly downhill, and I've always had this stupid instinct to go where the water is. Every few steps I stopped and listened. The first odd thing I noticed was a tree. It was a skinny alder, maybe as thick as my wrist, snapped off at about chest height, not cut, snapped. The break was fresh enough that the wood inside still looked pale. The top half lay on the ground a few feet away like it had been tossed there. Could a storm do that? Sure. I took a photo anyway. Evidence, right. I kept walking. The second odd thing was the silence. I know that sounds cliché. The woods went quiet. But it's true. When I stepped out of the yard earlier, I'd heard birds at least. A few chips and calls here and there. Now, nothing. Just the distant rush of that creek in my boots. Then I heard the exhale. It sounded like something big letting out a breath it had been holding. Not a snort, not a roar. Just air moving out of lungs. It came from behind me and to the right, maybe 20, 30 feet away in the trees. I froze. I turned slowly, lifting the camera without even realizing it. The viewfinder shook because my hands had started to shake. There was nothing obvious, just trees, brush, a dead log, shadows. The light was better now, but not great. Everything was that washed-out blue-gray. Then there was a crack, like a branch being stepped on. I swallowed. "Hello," I said. No answer. I took a step forward off the cut line into the brush. The ground was uneven. My boots slipped a little. I caught myself on a tree and left a wet handprint on the bark. That's when the stone came. It wasn't a rock fall or something dislodged. It was a small stone, about the size of a golf ball. And it came from the right, arcing and low and landing a foot in front of my boot with a clean, hard thud. If you've ever had someone throw something near you on purpose, not to hit you but to make a point, your body reads the intent before your brain does. I flinched back. Something, had just thrown a rock at me. My first impulse should have been to back away, to get out. That's what a smart person, or even a normally scared person, would do. But all the years of reading encounter reports, all the guys saying, "This is when it gets real," all the hours I'd spent fantasizing about what I'd do in that moment, they all crashed into each other. I thought, this is it. This is your shot, don't blow it. I stepped forward instead of back, brought the camera up, hit record. "Okay, I see you. Can you do that again?" Silence. I scanned the trees through the lens. The autofocus hunted and clicked uselessly on branches. I cursed under my breath, half at the camera, half at myself. "Come on," I whispered, "just show yourself. Just once." I'd love to say I heard it start to move and had time to react. I didn't. 1 second I was standing there, breath clouding, finger on the record button. The next second the world exploded forward at me. There was this impact that hit me from the left side like a truck. I didn't even see a full shape. Just a blur of dark, something higher than my shoulder, and the sense of something alive and huge, closing the distance in less than the time it takes to blink. I felt my shoulder go first. Something tore. Then my ribs as I slammed sideways into the ground, hitting a mix of rocks and roots. My head bounced off something hard, white light. A loud crack that I realized was half me, half wood. For a second I couldn't breathe. That's the worst part, not the pain. The absence of air, like someone had unplugged me. The camera flew. I heard it land somewhere behind me, that plastic crunch that means you just ruined something expensive. I rolled onto my back without meaning to. That's when I saw it. The first thing I really remember is that it was blocking the light. There was just this big dark shape between me and the sky, like a wall. The edges were wrong for anything I knew. I caught flashes. A lot of rough hair, long arms, shoulders too wide for anything that walks on 4 legs. I couldn't lock onto the face. People always want that part, but I was half out of it. What I remember is the outline of a head, the feeling of it looking down at me and its chest moving, slow and heavy. Then it made this sound, more like a deep rumble in its chest that I felt in the ground and in my ribs. A warning. I started scrambling backward on my elbows and heels because my left arm barely worked. It didn't rush me. It paced sideways, always staying between me and the deeper woods, like it was pushing me out, not hunting me. Then it turned, took a few long strides into the trees, and was gone. The silence after was almost louder than the hit. My shoulder felt wrong, my ribs hurt, my head pounded, and some stupid part of me was already thinking, you blew it. No clear shot, no proof. Then I heard my name. John, Matthew's voice. Closer than it should have been. I tried to answer, but what came out was a croak. I coughed and tasted blood. He crashed through the brush a few seconds later, moving fast for a man his age. It struck me even then. He didn't look surprised to find me there. Worried, yes. Angry, maybe. But not surprised. He dropped to his knees beside me without asking what happened. "Don't move," he said. His hands were on me, quick and efficient. He checked my head, his fingers parting my hair to look for blood, pressed lightly along my ribs, watching my face. Even that light touch made me gasp. "Did you hit your head?" he asked. "Yeah," I managed. "Something hit me. It was here. It was just here." He didn't look around wildly like someone who was scared. He glanced toward the thicker trees once, then back at me. "Can you walk?" he asked. "We need to get you out of here." "I saw it," I said. "It threw a rock. It hit me. It was right there." "It was." "Later," he said sharply. "We talk later. Right now we move." He got his arm under my good side and held me up. Pain flared in my shoulder. I leaned on him as we made our way back along the cut line. He knew exactly where to place his feet, exactly how to keep us both upright. At one point, I saw my camera half buried near a bush. I tried to stop. "Forget it," he said. "I'll get it later." The walk back felt longer than the walk out, even though logically it was the same distance. The cabin looked like a lifeboat when it finally came into view. He got me inside, sat me at the table, brought over a first aid kit, and popped it open. It wasn't a cheap little box. Proper bandages, rolls of gauze, antiseptic, butterfly closures, tape, scissors. Things I'd only really seen in hospitals. "We should go to a hospital," I said. It hurt just to talk. "We're a long drive from anything decent," he said. "You're breathing, you're talking, you're not throwing up. We watch you. If it changes, we go." He said it like he'd gone through that checklist before. "Did you see it?" I asked. "What hit me?" He paused, then shook his head. "I saw you on the ground. That was enough." "That wasn't a bear," I said. "I know a bear when I see one." "I never said it was a bear." "Then what was it, you know?" He wrapped my ribs while I talked, pulling the bandage tight. I had to stop more than once because of the pain. When he finished, he looked me in the eye. "Don't talk about what you saw," he said softly. "Not yet. Not to anyone. Not online. Not on your phone. Not when you go home. Not here. And you do not step past that yard again." It didn't sound like advice. It sounded like an order. "Are you serious?" I said. "I just got taken out by the thing I've been chasing for years, and your plan is silence?" "That's exactly why," he said. "You're hurt. You're scared. Your memory is not clean. Your mind will try to turn it into something that fits a story. Don't add another story on top of it." His hand rested on the table next to mine. His was steady. Mine wasn't. "And you're done with the woods," he added. "This is not a playground for your hobby." "Hobby," I repeated. "You invited me here. I told you there were things here," he said. "I didn't invite you to die." My chest tightened. "You knew something was out there," I said. "You let me walk into it anyway." "I gave you rules," he said. "You broke them." We stared at each other. Part of me wanted to do exactly what he said. Let him handle everything. The other part was already thinking about my camera in the mud, the memory card, the chance I might have missed or still had. The rest of that day drifted past. Pain. Short naps. Him checking my pupils, asking if I felt sick. The generator starting and stopping. The dog by the door, lifting her head now and then to stare toward the trees. By evening, my head was clearer. The fear had settled enough for anger to come through. "This is insane," I told him after dinner. I'd barely eaten. "We can't pretend this didn't happen." He was at the sink, washing plates. No TV noise, no music, just water and dishes. "What do you think happens if we don't?" he asked. "We get the footage," I said. "If the camera survived." We talked to serious people, a biologist, a reporter who isn't a clown. I know people. We do this properly. Not some shaky clip dumped online, or real investigation. I could hear myself. It sounded like a pitch. He put the plate down harder than normal. "You think you walk into town saying something big hit you in the woods," he said, "and that leads to calm scientists and polite interviews? If we handle it right?" "Yeah," I said, "if we speak first." He turned, drying his hands. You don't know these people, he said. You don't know how fast worry turns into trucks and guns. How fast it turns into kill all of them just in case. All of what? I asked. All Bigfoots? He didn't smile. Whatever is out there, he said. Whatever has been here longer than us. So your answer is to stay quiet, I said. Let it keep happening. People get hurt, and you just hold the line and tell yourself you're protecting them. His face tightened. You don't know what you're talking about, he said. Then explain it, I shot back. Because right now it looks like you're more scared of people finding out than of what almost killed me. That hit. I saw it. He looked down, then at the window, then at me again. You want to see something? He said. The way he said it put a knot in my stomach. What? I asked. Not now, he said. Tonight, when it's dark. That breaks your own rules, I said. Those rules were when you didn't know anything, he said. You went out there this morning. You opened the door yourself. You don't get to shut it and pretend. Tonight, I knew arguing wouldn't change it. The hours until dark dragged. I sat on the couch with an ice pack on my shoulder, listening to the stove, to the occasional drip outside, to a far-off truck now and then. Willow paced between the door and my feet and never fully settled. I thought about texting someone, if something happens, I'm at, and then stopped. There was no way to finish that message that didn't look crazy. At some point, I drifted off. When I opened my eyes, he was in the doorway. Come on, he said, bring your light. It was fully dark outside, no town glow, just the porch light and the steady hum of the generator. Everything hurt when I stood. My ribs, my shoulder, my head. I put on my jacket and grabbed my flashlight. We stepped out onto the porch. The light threw a small yellow circle on the wet boards. Beyond that, it was just shapes and tree lines. We didn't go toward the cut line. We went the other way, past the normal sheds, past the woodpile, past the water tank. He moved straight to a cluttered corner of the yard. Rusted farm equipment, old barrels, scrap wood. The kind of pile where things go when nobody knows where else to put them. He stopped in front of a stack of pallets leaned against the slope. Help me, he said. We pulled the pallets aside. Behind them was a door set into concrete, not wood. Not a standard shed door, metal, heavy. Set into a wall that disappeared into the hill behind the cabin. If you were not looking for it, you would miss it completely. There were 3 locks on it, a padlock, a heavy deadbolt. Another lock I didn't recognize. None of them were rusty. Somebody used them often. What is this? I asked. He didn't answer. He went through the locks one by one. The sounds were sharp in the cold air. When he pulled the door open, a thick smell came out, strong enough that I could taste it. What is this, Matthew? I said. My voice sounded small. He switched on his flashlight. Watch your head, he said. Ceiling's low at first. We stepped inside. The passage was narrow and low at the start. Concrete walls on both sides, rough and damp. The air felt heavier, colder. My hand brushed the wall for balance. It was wet in spots. The generator hum was louder down here, deeper, like it was under our feet or above our heads. We walked maybe 20 feet, then turned. Another door. This one thicker, steel. Bolts and hinges sitting on our side. Strips of dark sound-dampening material stuffed around the edges. He put his hand on the main handle and looked at me. Before I open this, he said, you need to understand something. I don't understand any of this, I said. My heart felt like it was in my throat. I didn't build this because I was bored, he said. I didn't build it because I wanted to keep something as a trophy. I built it because I didn't know what else to do. I built it because I was trying to pay for something I can't pay for. Pay for what? I asked. What is behind that door? His eyes looked tired in a way I'd never seen. You wanted proof, he said. This is what proof looks like after 20 years. He turned the handle. The door opened with a heavy sound. The smell that came out was worse. He stepped aside so I could see. The room was larger. High concrete ceiling. Bare walls. A drain set into the middle of the floor. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, throwing flat, harsh light across everything. At the far end of the room stood a cage. Thick steel bars, crossbeams bolted into the concrete. Reinforced corners. Chains fed through rings set into the floor and the lower walls. And behind the bars, sitting against the wall, was something I had no easy word for. My brain tried person first. A huge, thickly built person covered in hair slumped down. The hair was dark and dirty, stuck together in places. Some spots were thin enough that I could see rough skin under it. Its chest moved slow and heavy when it breathed. What I really remember are the hands. Big, human-looking hands. Wide palms, thick fingers, dark, broken nails. Its head was tilted toward us. Heavy brow, deep eyes, wide mouth. Close enough to human that it felt wrong, but not close enough to mistake it for a man. Metal cuffs were tied around its wrists and ankles. The hair there was rubbed off. The skin was thick and scarred, some of it older, some of it fresh. Chains ran from those cuffs down to rings set in the concrete. Some chains sagged. Some were pulled tight, holding one arm in a certain range. My legs felt weak. I reached for the doorframe without thinking. He stood next to me, light steady on the cage. "There," he said quietly. "That's what you came for." I started, then stopped. The word insane sat there in my mouth. "You captured one," I said instead. You have one down here. Behind bars." He nodded once. His face was blank in that way people do when they don't want to show what's going on behind it. "This isn't real," I said. This is some, I don't know, a suit or..." The thing shifted again, letting out a low, hoarse sound. Not a roar. More like a cough crossed with a groan. The muscles in its shoulders flexed. The hair moved naturally. My brain wanted to split. Half of it was screaming that this was the jackpot. Proof. The thing I'd wanted since I was a kid, right there in front of me. The other half understood, very quietly, that I was standing in a prison cell someone had built for a living creature. "What did you do?" I whispered. "I kept it from going after anyone else," he said. "How long?" I asked, still staring. "How long have you had it here?" He was silent for a moment. "More than 20 years, he said. My knees buckled. I ended up sitting on an overturned crate without really choosing to. "You're lying," I said. It would have died, or someone would have heard. Smelled something. "I've kept it alive," he said. "Fed it. Treated wounds as best I could. Kept the noise down. That's what all the locks and the generator are for. It's not all torture down here, whatever you're thinking. It's containment." The creature shifted closer to the bars, not all the way. Just enough that the light caught its eyes. It looked at Matthew longer than it looked at me. "Why?" I asked. My voice cracked. "Why would you do this?" He let out a long breath. "You want the story," he said. "Fine. You get the whole story. Not the one I told your dad at the funeral. Not the one I tell people in town when they ask why I never remarried. The real one." He leaned against the opposite wall, as far from the cage as the room allowed without leaving it. "It was supposed to be a simple camping trip," he said. "Me, my wife, our 3 kids. This was before you were born. Your dad came out one summer after and stood where you're standing now and believed the version I gave him. I let him. I let everyone. I told it so many times I started to almost believe it myself. We came out here for the weekend," he said. "It was a place I knew from when I was young. Good fishing, enough space for the kids to run. I'd heard stories about things out here, sure, but you grow up with those stories." He stared at the floor for a long second. "The first night I watched," he said, like something was just outside the glow of the fire. I heard movement. I told myself it was elk, maybe bear. I had a rifle. "You know that feeling?" I nodded without meaning to. "Yeah, I knew that feeling. For me it had been cameras, not guns, but it was the same fix. The same illusion of control. The second night it got closer," he said, "or I thought it did. I heard. I don't know what to call it. My wife asked if we should pack up and leave. I said no. I said, we're fine. I got this. I didn't want my kids to see me scared." He gave a humorless smile when he said that. Later, when everyone was in the tent, I stepped out with the rifle. Just to look around, I told myself. Just to chase off whatever was there. The light was bad. The fire was low. His hand tightened on his arm as he spoke. "I saw movement near the tree line," he said. "A shape. Big. Upright. For a second my brain didn't know what it was. Then something else moved behind it. Smaller. I don't know if it was another one or if it was walking past a tree and the shadow tricked me. But in that moment I told myself, there's more than one. It's close to my kids." He looked up at the creature in the cage. "I didn't wait to see what it did," he said. "I raised the rifle and I shot first. Because that's what men in stories do when there's something near their families, right? They act. They don't hesitate. The thing in the cage made a low, ugly sound, not loud. Like it recognized itself in what he said. The scream that came out of those trees when I hit, I still hear it, he went on. It was like pain from something that didn't know what a gun was until that moment. It echoed. The kids woke up. My wife shouted my name. The fire kicked up from the shock of the shot, and the wind and the shadows went crazy. Everything broke at once, he said. The kids bolted out of the tent and ran before we could grab them. My wife went after them. I saw more movement, or I thought I did. Something big crashing through the brush, something smaller with it, or being dragged by it, I couldn't tell. It was raining by then, slick as hell. The flashlights kept catching smoke instead of trees. People were shouting, crying. Something, maybe the one I hit, maybe another, ran right past our camp. I felt it more than I saw it. The air moved, branches snapped. I fired again and didn't hit anything but wood. He took a breath that sounded like it hurt. By morning, I was the only one left at that camp, he said. My youngest went down a cut in the dark. They found her body 2 days later at the bottom of a ravine. My middle boy, they never found him whole, just pieces. My wife and oldest, they think she slipped trying to grab him back from whatever grabbed him first. There were drag marks. There was blood. There was enough that everyone could make whatever story they wanted. Bear attack, maybe one of those things. People love a clean monster. He stared straight ahead. I knew something else, though, he said. I knew I fired the first shot. I knew I put the fear in whatever was out there. I knew my pride lit the fuse. For a while, all you could hear was the buzz of the lights and the low, ragged breathing of the thing behind the bars. I couldn't live with that as my only truth, he said. So I made another one. He kept his eyes on the floor. I told myself it came into camp first, that it attacked us, that I shot to protect my family. That's what I told your dad. That's what I told everyone. Then I told myself, if I can find it, if I can catch it, then it's not just my fault. It's a fight. It's something I can answer. He lifted a hand and motioned around the bunker. It took years, he said. Tracks, broken trees, sounds, learning where they move, when they cross. I followed one. Maybe the same one, maybe not. I don't know anymore. I trapped it, heard it, dragged it back here, built this room, built that cage. I told myself I was protecting people, punishing it, doing something useful. Anything so I didn't have to sit alone with the fact I fired first into the dark. So all these years, I said, you've had this thing in a cage because you couldn't admit you were scared. He winced. I had it in a cage, he said slowly, because I didn't know what else to do with the part of me that wanted to blame anything but myself. Behind the bars, the creature shifted a little closer, metal links scraping. It sat near the front of the cage now, chains tight, chest rising and falling slow. It leaned more on one side, like something hurt there. Why are you telling me this now, I asked. Because you walked into the woods and met another one, he said. Because I know you won't leave this alone. I know you're kind. I used to be your kind. If I keep lying, you'll dig until something breaks. If I show you the bottom of it, maybe you think twice before you drag the rest of the world in. I looked at the cage. If this one's been here with you, I said, then what hit me this morning? He didn't answer right away. His jaw tightened. His eyes shifted to the side. There's more out there, I said. At least one more. Yes, he said quietly. There always were. I told myself this was the one that screamed that night. The guilty one. It made it easier. But what you saw wasn't in here, was it? The room felt heavier. So you didn't catch the one you shot, I said. You just caught something you could reach. He pushed off the wall and crossed to a metal table in the corner. There was a thick, stained notebook lying there. He picked it up and brought it over. 20 years, he said. Notes, schedules, feeding, noise, sedatives, things I did, things I didn't. You wanted proof. This is what I told myself proof looks like. He handed it to me. The cover was soft from use. Inside, the pages were full of small, tight writing, dates down the margins, short lines beside them. Responded to wood knocking with agitation. Took fish, refused venison. Paced for hours after thunderstorm. Wound at left wrist worse. There were rough sketches of the room. One line was darker, underlined twice. Reacts to children's voices, not with anger, with something else. Was this enough for you, I asked. This notebook? It let me pretend, he said. Pretend this was a study, not a man in a hole with a prisoner and a grudge. My phone buzzed in my pocket. The sound made me jump. It also made the thing in the cage flinch. What was that? I muttered, pulling it out. The movement yanked my shoulder and I hissed through my teeth. The screen lit up. A random notification. Some video auto-playing low. A short, bright sound came from the speaker. A child's laugh. Just a fragment. The creature went still, its eyes fixed on the phone. Not like it wanted the object, but like something inside it recognized the sound. Its face tightened. The look was not rage. It looked more like someone hearing something they hadn't heard in a long time and not wanting to. Then it let out a rough, low noise and turned its head away. How old were your kids? I asked, still staring at the cage. He hesitated. 7, 9, 11, he said. I glanced down at the note about children's voices, then at him, then back at the bars. You know what this points to? I said quietly. You probably didn't even grab the same one. It heard your kids that night. It remembers that sound, and you pulled it down here and made it carry what you did. He scrubbed a hand over his face. You think I don't know that? He said. You think I haven't sat here wondering if I got the wrong one? Wondering if there even is a right one. Wondering if I've been spending 20 years hitting the wrong target and calling it justice. And you still kept it here, I said. I didn't know what else to do, he said. You ever build your whole life on one story? You yank that story out and everything falls. This, he motioned to the room, the cage, the notebook. This is what kept me standing. This, and the idea that I was keeping it from happening again, except it almost happened again, I said. To me. You didn't stop it. You just hid one in your basement and told yourself it meant something. We stood there with the cage between us. What are you going to do now? I asked. Same thing as before, he said. Keep people away, keep my head above water. That's not enough, I said. This is wrong. Whatever it did or didn't do, this is prison. This is punishment. His eyes hardened. If you tell this story, he said, no one out there is going to argue about prison. They're going to hear something big in the woods and think kill every last one. They will not care about this one's past. They won't sort them. They'll roll in with trucks, rifles, dogs, drones. They won't stop at the line. So your answer is chains and lies, I said. My answer is carrying what I chose, he said, not passing it off to someone who wants content. You talk, you light a fuse you don't understand. You can fly home and feel brave. I stay here when people come. And what about it? I asked, nodding at the cage. No vote? His jaw tightened. It got more from me than it would have from most, he said. Food. Warmth. Someone paying attention. That's not care, I said. That's captivity dressed up. That's how people handle what they fear, he said. We went in circles like that. I brought up calling authorities. He shut that down fast. You think they shake my hand? He said. They see an old native man who lost his family and went off the rails, and a rich nephew who helped. They'll write it as a sad case. Then they'll bring in people who don't care about anything except removing risk. You, me, that thing, all just part of the mess to clean. I'll tell them the truth, I said. I'll tell them you fired first. I'll tell them everything. You don't have to carry it alone. You think I want that in a report, he said. You think I want my kids' deaths filed under accidental discharge? No. I can't fix what I did, but I can carry it. That's my job, not the state's, not yours. At some point, my body started to give out. My legs shook. My shoulder throbbed. My ribs pulsed with each breath. He saw it. That's enough, he said. We're done down here tonight. You're going to pass out. I didn't want to turn my back on the cage, but I did. As we stepped toward the door, I looked once more. It had moved close to the front, eyes on me. The look was not animal hunger. It was more like recognition, like it understood I was leaving and it wasn't. We went back up. The night air felt colder than before. The generator hummed. The cabin lights looked too normal. I slept badly. My dreams were a mess of bars, chains, and kids' laughter echoing in concrete. The next day, the generator started acting up. It coughed, flickered, caught again. I mentioned it. He just shrugged and said it was old. His voice was flat. His eyes looked worse. That night, I was on the couch watching the stove when I heard the sound. Metal. Hard and violent, like a heavy fence being shaken over and over. Then a pause. Then again, under it, a rough, raw noise. He was up before I fully registered it. "Stay here," he said. "No," I said. My body hurt, but adrenaline pushed everything else down. We grabbed flashlights and headed to the hidden door. The dog refused to follow. She stayed back, eyes wide, shaking. The rattling was louder by the time he got the locks undone. The smell that hit us in the passage was worse than before. We rushed to the inner door. The fluorescent lights inside flickered. When he swung it open, the creature was slamming itself against the bars. Not like a strong animal pacing. Shoulders hitting metal, chains flying, the whole cage shuddering. There were dark stains on the floor. Its breathing was loud and rough. "Stop," Matthew shouted. "You're going to." The thing cried out one raw sound and threw itself forward one more time. Then it dropped. The lights went out. The generator died with a stutter. Everything went black. I fumbled my flashlight on. My hand shook. His beam flicked on a second later. The creature was on its side now, back against the bars. Its chest rose shallowly. Its eyes were half open, catching the light. There was blood at its mouth. "Did you change anything?" I asked. "Food? Dose? Anything?" He shook his head. "Same as always," he said. "It's been slowing down." I thought it was age. I don't know. We watched its chest rise, fall, pause, rise. Longer gaps. "You need to call someone," I said. "Vet, doctor, I don't care who." He gave a short, empty laugh. "And say what?" he asked. "Come help my illegal prisoner die slower?" "We can't just watch," I said. "We already are," he said quietly. There was nothing big or dramatic in the end. The breaths got farther apart. Then there wasn't another one. That was it. "That's it," I said out loud because I didn't know what else to say. He stared at the cage. His shoulders slumped. "Call someone," I said again, quieter. "Tell the truth. It's over. You can't undo it. At least don't hide it." He switched off his flashlight. Only my beam stayed on. "There is nothing to gain by telling," he said. "Only more damage." "For you," I said. "For your image." "What about everyone else? What about whatever else is out there? What about the next person who doesn't know where the line is?" "There will always be something out there," he said. "One body doesn't solve anything. It just gives them an excuse to come in force." "This place is already wrecked," I said. "You wrecked it. You fired in panic. You built a cage. You kept something down here for 20 years. You think silence makes that clean?" He flinched. "You're leaving in the morning," he said. "I'll take you to town. After that, you go live your life. You don't talk about this. Not online. Not in bars. Not on shows. You let this place heal without 1,000 strangers stomping through it." "I can't promise that," I said. He looked at me, and I saw plain fear, not of monsters, of what I could do with a story. "You think truth is always a cure," he said. "Sometimes it's a fire. Sometimes fire is the only thing that clears rot," I said. He turned away, walked to the table, picked up the notebook, the same one with 20 years of notes. He carried it upstairs without a word. On the porch, under the weak light, he opened the stove, tossed the notebook into the firebox, and lit it. "Wait," I said. "What are you doing?" "Ending it," he said. The pages caught, curled, turned black. Lines of ink vanished. "That's 20 years of data," I said. "That's 20 years of excuses," he said. 20 years of me pretending this was something noble. It doesn't get to live longer than what I did down there. We watched it burn. "What about me?" I asked. "You can't burn my memory. You live with it," he said. "Same as me." "You're asking me to be part of it," I said. "I'm asking you not to start something you can't stop," he said. "Once you let this out, it's not yours. It belongs to whoever hears it. They'll cut it up, twist it, turn it into proof or a joke. You don't get control back." He closed the stove door. I barely slept. At first light, he knocked on my door and said it was time. We didn't go back down. I asked what he'd do with the body. He said he'd take care of it. The way he said it made me drop it. He drove me to town. We rode mostly in silence. Trees, then houses, then gas stations and signs. He pulled over by a diner. "This is as far as I go," he said. I nodded. You going to be okay, I asked. He let out a small laugh. I've been not okay for a long time, he said. I'll keep going. He looked at me. I'm sorry I pulled you into this, he said. When I asked you out, I thought I could show you something and send you home with a clean story. I forgot there are no clean stories here. You could still talk to someone, I said. A counselor, a pastor, someone who isn't me. He shook his head. The land remembers, he said. That's enough. I started to close the door. John, he said. I looked back. If you tell this, he said, remember, once the story leaves you, it's theirs, not yours. They'll do whatever they want with it. You don't get it back. Sometimes silence is the only thing you still own. Then he drove off. That afternoon, I flew back to New York. When people saw the sling and the way I moved and asked what happened, I told them I fell on a hike. It was easier. At night, I heard the rock hit the dirt by my boot. I heard the rumble in its chest. I smelled damp concrete and wet fur. I saw that look when it heard the child's laugh. For a long time, I didn't tell the full story to anyone. Not my parents, not my closest friends. I'd start and stop. Part of it was shame. Part of it was knowing he was right about one thing. Once it's out, you don't control it. What finally pushed me was hearing some podcast hosts laugh about a native guy with a Bigfoot in a cage in Washington. My uncle became a joke. That being became a joke. So this is my version. You can believe it or not. I can't make you. I don't have video. The camera that hit the mud that morning never turned back on. Maybe that's lucky. If I had a clear shot, I probably would have built my whole life around using it. Instead, I have this, a trip I wish I could undo, a family story that broke open, and one fact I can't get rid of. On that land, past the last good road, something died behind bars because a man couldn't live with what he did. And something else is still out there, past that old cut line, throwing rocks near people's boots instead of at their heads, huffing a warning, and vanishing into the trees before anyone can hit record.